and we're going to talk a little bit about best practices now. So now you know how to use media items and media checkout in academia. Let's talk about why you should use media items and media checkout in academia. So what I always like to do when I start talking about best practices, especially for a newer module, I talk about the alternative. What was life like for academia users before we had media checkout? Because this one is a fairly new module. It's within the last year or so of development. So before this module, it wasn't as easy to track physical items with Accudemia. They would have to either be tracked outside of the system or by using Accudemia in an unintended way. I've seen some folks use like services or appointments and kind of try to finagle that into a media checkout because they did want it in one system. But having it all in one place is beneficial in so many ways if you are able to do that. Some schools have their own program that they want to use for any physical items, especially if you're operating through a library. Through the school library. But if you aren't and you have some items that students can utilize in your center, using the media checkout is a really good option for that. It's going to give you some really great data that's going to go alongside your other tracking data to allow you to get a full picture of how your center is being utilized. And this applies to any type of item, including items that can be loaned out on a short-term or long-term basis. So if we're just talking about items that have to stay in your physical center, you can do that, or if it's items that students can take out for days or weeks or even a whole semester at a time, it can do that too, as we've seen with Nick's presentation. So I was trying to think of some different ways it can be utilized. The first and most obvious way is just a traditional academic media checkout. So if your center has laptops that students can use, tablets, cameras, textbooks, anything like that, using Accudemia for these items to keep track of them is a no-brainer. Your budgets are, I know from working in higher ed, budgets are really, really tight. Any items that you do have for loan are precious. And if you're nervous about letting students, lending them out to students, having an easy way to keep track of those items and an easy way to remind students when they need to return those items can be a really, really, really invaluable. And then trying to think a little bit outside of the box. One thing that I kept coming across in my research was the idea of kits. So not just like one simple item that a student can check out at a time, but like a whole kit of items for different scenarios. So one suggestion was a finals survival kit. So a kit made consisting of things like earplugs, snacks, and then other kinds of resources for this category would fall under like flashcards, anatomy models, graphing calculators, things that maybe a tutor would more check out than a student while working with a student in the center, or that a student would probably use in the center. They probably aren't going to take an anatomy model back to their dorm, for example. And then this can also be utilized in areas that promote student success and wellness. So meditation and mindfulness kits, any fitness equipment, which that would include like the large physical equipment that a fitness center would have, or maybe like, what do you call them, resistance bands, hula hoops, yoga mats, things like that, that students can check out, but that you still want to make sure are returned and that you're keeping track of. Light therapy lights was another one I saw. I thought that was a really interesting idea for students who are dealing with things like seasonal affective disorder. And again, back to the kits, a really great idea I saw was a coloring kit or a take a break, something that encourages mindfulness, encourages a calming time where you're not focused exclusively on studying, where you are giving your brain that break. And then folks running a career center have some opportunities to use this as well. A lot of students are going to need help with interviews, getting ready to take photos for their resume. And then one suggestion I saw was professional clothing. So this is going to be feasible for some schools, not for others. But I do know that some schools have food pantries and things like that for struggling students. So I don't see it out of the realm of possibility that some schools might be able to provide clothing on loan to students who might struggle to have those or just might not have that at that particular stage in their career. And then finally, makerspace. So some schools are introducing these areas where students can either work on academics or outside of coursework, but creating things in a structured and supportive environment. So things like the use of 3D printers, electronics kits, and then if you are able to create a kit that would address a specific assignment for a specific course, that can be a lot more helpful to students than them having to piecemeal take those items out or having to purchase them themselves if you're able to provide them to some of your students. Finally, I want to get to the good stuff. I want to get to the actual examples of how the media items are and the media checkout is being utilized by different Accudemia users. So I have a few quotes that I will read to you, and then a very lovely video from an interview that occurred earlier this week. So let me just get to the quotes from the wonderful users who were very generous with letting me know about how they utilize that. So first I have, let's see. Yeah, first I have Kelly from Monterey Peninsula College, who gave me this information about how her school is using media checkout. So he says each center is able to curate their own lists and categories, which is great for keeping track of items. It's very important if you have multiple centers utilizing this feature. Even if you have multiple centers and only one is utilizing it, other centers might want to follow suit one day. So it is worth making sure that those categories and lists are very clear from the start. Tracking helps us to justify purchases of particular study models and materials. There are reports that show media checkout history that helps them with getting a picture of how their area is being utilized, as Nick showed you all. Our student workers, both including tutors and front desk staff, check out those items to students. So they have that as a staff-facing module that works for them. We have multiple items of the same type, like our disarticulated bone boxes. So we find the media checkout useful to easily identify which items are currently in use and which are still on the shelf without having to physically locate them. And then for what works for their particular center area, they said we chose to include our study rooms on our media checkout instead of the resource reservations option. So another week we can talk about the resource reservations. So this for them has just been a little bit easier to utilize that. And you can use the media checkout for resources, but in a lot of cases, the resource reservation module is going to be the best way to cover that particular type of scenario. All right, and then next I have a great response from, oh, where'd it go? Forgot to save it. Hold on 1 second. All right, so this was Chaz from Antelope Valley College. He said that they did add their inventory items to it, and this includes mostly textbooks. In the Learning Center, it also includes laptops, headphones, VR headsets, whiteboards, anatomy bones, study guides and materials, textbooks, etc. He likes that it provides a nice link to the student's account so they can easily track any items that can be forgotten and not return. So a simple use of it, but very effective for their needs. Next up, we have Davis, who talked to me about, who sent me some information on how they're using the media checkout at East Carolina University. For professional staff, we mostly use it for checking out presentation equipment like iPads and laptops. We also have a few of our tutors that need to check them out from time to time, but most of them have their own that they use. I try to keep pretty straightforward tracking for internal use. To start, what we did was label all devices with a letter and a number, like much like what Nick did. So for example, computers are in 5 different carts. So we have cart A1 to 32, B 1 through 32. iPads are iPad 1 through 15. It helps us to know what laptops we always have in the center and which ones each professional staff member has. If there are other questions, please let me know. He says, sorry, got a little overzealous there. So this is a case of it's not the students checking out those items. It's actually the staff that are checking them out. And I want to point that out because even if you feel like I don't think that I think these materials are too sensitive for a student to handle. Accudemia is not just for tracking student usage. It is for tracking usage of all of your resources. So if your tutors are the ones checking those out or your staff, that's okay. They can still use that. It is still valuable to get that data. And next, I have some information from Danny over at Golden West College, who they just started using it last month. So just goes to show it's never too late. And in the past, they were manually checking out media items such as keyboards for study rooms, Chromebook, headphones, calculators, or phone charge cords using a spreadsheet. Our staff had to enter all info, including student name, ID, date, item checked out, their name, time out, time back in, and then their name again. It was time consuming and things got missed along the way. I spent a few days inventorying, creating a list of all media items and creating a code with an easy to remember letter and number. I then added the codes to each item with a label maker for easy recording. Love a good label maker. For example, we have 15 headphones, so they are labeled HP1, HP2, etc. I added each of the media items in Accudemia with their corresponding code. Now our staff only has to enter the student's ID number and media item code to check something out. The system enters the rest of the information, such as the date and name of the staff that entered it. To check items back in, it's even easier. They only have to enter the item code on the return page and the item will be recorded as returned. It took a bit of prep, but it has been so worth it. My staff loves how easy it is now. Really great example of how that initial bit of prep and preloading can really pay off and make your life much easier in the long run. And then finally, I wanted to show this video from Arizona Western College. All right, thank you, Vanessa and Michelle from Arizona Western College for meeting with me today. I'd love to hear about how you all are using the media items in Accudemia.
All right, well, thanks for reaching out and asking. We have a very robust graphing calculator rental program here at Arizona Western. And I would say we have close to 500 calculators that we rent to students. And so finding a way to manage all of that has been a chore over the years. And so we were really excited to start using Accudemia for the system. So it took a while to create the inventory. We had everything logged with a serial number and an identity number. So we know if an item doesn't come back or something happens to it, what exactly that item is. So when students come to pick up their calculator, we're able to find them in the system, make sure that they are registered in a class that is eligible for the rental, which is nice because Accudemia, of course, only pulls up the courses that students are registered for, and we're able to check it out to them. We've set up email confirmations when they get the calculator and can customize those messages. We can send out reminder messages that their calculator's coming due. And then if it's past due, letting them know they're going to be charged for the item if it's not returned. So, like I said, Michelle is the one that that manages that on a day-to-day basis with her front desk team. So, do you want to add anything to that?
I just feel that from what we've had in the past, using Accudemia has really streamlined the rental program, and it's an easy barcode. Just scan it when it's being checked out, and then when they bring it back, it's a scan and it's showing that it's returning to the inventory. So it's a pretty streamlined process. Like Vanessa mentioned, it was a little bit work getting the inventory inputted, but once it was done, it's very easy. It was easy to train the front desk staff as well. Of course, the only problem you run into is if you don't scan in or out. That can be the human error, but as far as Accudemia, it's really been easy to use.
I would say, like, one of the challenges for us was because we're on a 16-week semester, but we actually offer classes year-round. So we have 8-week terms, our courses. We have a 12-week late start class. We offer classes in the summer and then in the winter time. And we rent these items year-round. So when we initially input everything into the system, we thought, okay, we'll set it up for like a 17-week checkout period. That way everything will line up. And then the first time we rented in a different into a course that was not that length, and students started getting messages that their calculator was due and they just picked it up and they were freaking out a little bit. And so should have read the instructions maybe a little closer or something. So that was something that was definitely fixable. I don't know if you have any questions about any of that or how you kind of manage it. Again, you still need the human in the loop to make sure everything runs smoothly. But once you figure it out, it's really been phenomenal to have a tool like this. So.
Good. And with 500 items, even if they're all identical, I can definitely understand needing to take the time to build that all in. What were you using before to track those calculators?
Yeah, good question. So we actually did have AccuSQL. That was the system that we were using before, but we really weren't using that tool to that capability. So we had manual spreadsheets that we were tracking everything with. And we still actually, we can run user reports. We still keep physical like agreements that we have students sign.
Sure.
And things like that as a backup, but it does make it really easy to run a report from Accudemia, and we can see at a quick glance like, oh, this item never got checked in. We have the physical thing, or something doesn't look quite right. So it's extra documentation, and it helps us just understand the bigger picture of how many items we're renting, the usage, just, very quickly at our fingertips.
Yeah, no, I understand. And so since that's made the graphing calculators pretty easy to track, are there any plans to expand that module's usage?
So that's another good question. Since COVID, we really haven't used a whole lot of other media items except the graphing calculators. Like within our center, we have webcams and headphones and miscellaneous items that students can check out. And I think we have some of those items, maybe.
There's a few, but we haven't inputted all that.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely capable, but because our usage,
Changed.
yeah, our needs changed in the center. So, but in the past, we have, for instance, we used to get copies of textbooks and make those available to students who were waiting, on their financial aid to come, or just things like that. So on a limited scale, we still have those available for students, but we haven't really used Accudemia for that.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like there's definitely room to expand if you find yourselves wanting to, if usage, hopefully we can get that usage increased. Has the data from using the media checkout shown you anything of note about the activity in your center?
Well, I think it, again, because it's so readily accessible, we can just turn it over to our administration and be like, here you go. Like, here's
Yeah.
everything that we've done. So when we go to request purchasing new items or things like that, then it just makes it very, very easy to do that.
Also, when
Gotcha.
something's not returned, having it
Mhm.
in Accudemia, some semesters we maybe have 4 items that don't come back, some we've had 7, but being able to look that up in Accudemia, it's easier to track which ones weren't returned on time or that we billed them out. It's
Mhm.
helped to keep track of that as well.
Good.
And I think just on that point, because these are expensive items that we're talking about, right? Like anywhere from $130 to $160. And so it's really important that we have an accurate tool to track, and we feel very confident. Is again on the human part, right? As long as we're checking
Right.
in and doing that, that if we're going to charge the student that amount of money, that we can be like, hey, this is the record of what happened here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you both so much for meeting with me. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about the system? It sounds like it's working pretty efficiently for you.
We like it.
Good. Awesome.
We're glad it exists.
I'm
um,
glad.
yes, for sure.
All right. And that was the end of that. Thank you so much to Vanessa and Michelle from Arizona Western College. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate your time today, and we will see you at the next Academia monthly session. Take care, everyone.